Oh, awesome! I can see them all on the same
literally.
on the same screen. That's great.
So, but can you just start out by saying like your name, where you're from, what you do?
Yeah, my name is Erin McCarthy. I work for Counterculture Coffee out of New York City as a tech, and that's also what I do. Yeah, I won the 2013 World Brewers Cup Championship. So I started out as a barista and then kind of got into the competition circuit for like 3 years. Yeah.
You were the first American to win?
It's true, yeah. I started in coffee in 2003 for a roastery in upstate New York called Gimme Coffee. Yeah, it was a brief stint in Athens, Georgia, where I roasted for a smaller roasting company, which was super neat to live there for a year. Counterculture drew me. It had like both the other roasting companies that I worked for too had a very kind of strong focus on real sustainability and quality, kind of together, and education. So when this tech job came up, I had done, a lot of barista training and some managing, and I wanted to kind of do a different aspect of it. So I thought, I kind of don't know much about espresso machines. I got to know a little bit working for Gimme because I had a really good kind of tech program there, but I was never a tech before this. So I tried to kind of like make it a little journey, if you will. The Gesha variety is an heirloom variety from Ethiopia, so the seed that Moises and Marisabel, the producers, planted is the same variety that can be found in Ethiopia and has been found for hundreds of years. The SL28, the SL stands for Scott Laboratories, and that was created in a lab with the purposes of higher production and resistance to disease for Kenya. So what's really neat about that is it's one of the most popular varieties grown in Kenya. So when you taste this coffee, it tastes like you're drinking a Kenyan coffee, which is super neat. To kind of separate that idea of a taste of place and kind of layer it now, like, oh, variety can also taste a certain way. Even if you grow a Macintosh, right, in Washington as opposed to upper, New York State, it can still taste very similar, right? If we're talking about like Central America, where these coffees come from, there's really only a handful of varieties that have traditionally grown there, and that's because of kind of the way that coffee made its way around the world through the kind of spice routes and the trade routes in like the 1700s. So it's really all from one tree and one variety, all descended from that. So that means that when things get a little rough for one variety, a disease has the capacity to wipe out an entire crop, whereas if there's different varieties growing on the same farm, you have the ability to start, kind of shifting production from one set of coffee trees to another. So that's kind of a lot of what struck me as kind of the importance of kind of talking about this stuff too. The way that us people in specialty coffee have communicated the way that coffee can taste. Kind of on the timeline of that, we talked about processing a lot in terms of like, you can do a wash process where, the seed is taken completely out of the cherry and sat and fermented. So, it's a stone fruit, so the fruit that hangs onto the seed, just like in an apricot or peach, same thing with a coffee seed. So try to get that off as much as possible and wash it a ton. And that gives a certain flavor profile no matter what coffee that you've used. Then there's the natural kind of traditional way of taking the coffee off the tree, cherry, and just letting it out to dry. And then the cherry, the fruit gets really hard, and you have to like crack it open at the end, the seed comes out, right? So because that seed is dried in the fruit, it's got a lot more of a kind of berry fruit taste to it, a lot more sugar. So there's kind of that way to talk about coffee, and that's actually like a really neat way to introduce coffee consumers to the fact that coffee doesn't just taste, like kind of general kind of chocolate kind of tastes. And then going further than that, it's really just kind of more recently that we've started to introduce different varieties, right? So like you can kind of not just taste a coffee that's a Kenyan coffee, right? You can talk about a Kenyan coffee that is SL28, or a Kenyan coffee that is a wash process or a natural process. So yeah, it's pretty neat, the development of it. There's just so many layers you can open up. Absolutely, yeah.
Everything I really need.
So that one you just picked up is the SL28. So that's the kind of traditional variety that's grown in Kenya. At home, I use a Chemex or a Kalita. The first 2 years that I competed in the Brewers Cup, I used a Chemex. Yeah, what I would say to the home, brewer is that the Whirly Blade one gives you a lot of different sizes of grounds, and so if you have a certain amount of time that you're brewing the coffee in, the smaller grounds that are ground finer will extract really quickly. The bigger ones will extract more slowly, and so if there's a really extreme variance, you're always going to get kind of weird tasting coffee that might be like a little on the bitter side, also maybe a little sour, kind of over extracting, under extracting at the same time. So the bird grinder is the way to go. Also filtered water, like just storing your tap water through a Brita. I feel like a lot of people do that anyway. Yeah.
Well, I think that's actually all that I
Oh,
had.
awesome.
But this is